I'm not trying to be super spiritual, but I feel like I'm being tried inhumanly. It's not as insane as Canon Andrew White and his wife, which involves their human bodies and mobility. Like John Stevens, Graham Cook, Grenville Richard Harding, and many other Christians, male and female, it feels like GCHQ or witches or whoever have climbed into their spouse's brain to try them, a bit like Tribe of Dan trying Israel from a distance, like trying a Mark Courtile for all the things he's not, like trying a Matthew for his interpersonal affection, not, like trying a Luke for his house building abilities, like trying a John for not being like other people, as indeed theologians address him as the non-synoptic gospel. Canon Andrew White has nobody except the Lord in regard to his own situation, except, of course, his situation would have been long sorted if med beds hadn't been suppressed, or power healings not such a rare thing in the body of Christ. With my friends losing spouses, in proper third-level church situations like Jerusalem, it would have all got addressed. The only reason we can all be picked off so easily is there is no pillar and ground of truth. Only absurd pyramid pastor synagogues in the earth, which only espouse a few of Christ's crown of 12 stars each, as we see in Revelation 12. So yeah, any ministry is really vulnerable at the moment. All witches or secret occult organisations like Tavistock Institute have to do is turn the heat up a bit. And a couple like Andrew White get decimated physically while still young people. We aren't meant to all be this vulnerable. The Catholic priest on Hailing, right, is born again apparently. I haven't met him yet. He's born again and baptised in the Spirit and being destroyed physically here right now on Hailing. The Rowlands Castle vicar, that's just beyond Havant here, who relocated to Tame with his wife and then had all his chronic fatigue, what's the D stand for? Syndrome? Anyway, the CFD, return big time, forcing his wife into a caring position where she is a professional teacher herself. This is all nonsense. Now, God is always over and above everything, but all this is largely because nobody is obeying spiritual blueprints, so we can all be picked off at will. Fancy having a wife leave you over stating quite literally what's happening to us with factual evidence everywhere. It'd be like leaving Dietrich Bonhoeffer because he was criticising Hitler. The whole thing is nonsense. The dozes on Facebook have no concept of warfare. I would never entrust my life ordinarily to 2,400 people who never communicate over the material I'm producing. I'm used to a praying community in Emsworth that smash apart attacks on body members, whether it be leukemia or paralysis or bad relationships or finance. The only reason I'm here at all is because it's been the last resort place on God's earth to twin or combine the secrets given to G.H. Warnock that Americans can't be asked about, even though he was American. Ed Miller, Norman Grubb, Daniel Yordi, Basil Eshlink, Rees Howells, Sam Fife, etc., about how the third level realms work, like the apostles and Paul were in. Everywhere else are just babies, moving around like headless chickens with some of God's power tools. But like Bill Johnson and Rodney Howard-Browne, no real life clue about building anything on earth that even resembles some Galatians 2:20 living over a city. This is why God got 25 of us living in one house 40 years ago, to prepare a people who would defy the odds of 1 Corinthians 12:14 through 26. Always, this should always have to remain true. Here we are, 2,000 years on. It's still true. Dysfunctional body. The answers are all here in some senses. The answers are all here. In our already limited ways, we have already unlocked the code. In Darmstadt, I said limited way because obviously that's very Lutheran, I know, but you can read from the books Basil Eshlink wrote that they were living Bible, they were living this stuff. So like Darmstadt, Pulkingham's Emsworth here. The rest of the church want to carry on with their stupid podium shows and calling their pastor their rabbi, as Jesus expressly told people we are not doing that. And John stated quite categorically what we are doing in 1 John chapter 1. But nobody on earth could care less. Church Growth International is ludicrous, coming out of a church of the biggest pyramid in the earth. They want to lecture everybody on how to build a church. It's not even a church. Seoul is an Old Testament rabbi synagogue on a massive scale. We knew as 20-year-olds more about ecclesia and how they function in Emsworth than Yonggi Cho ever knew to his dying day. Spending Tuesdays on disbursing massive amounts of wealth hoovered up weekly from his massive Ford Motor Corporation lookalike. Oh, this is nonsense! 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 We aren't doing this stupidity anymore. We aren't going to be stupid Americans trying to make believe evangelism like Lance and Mario when they haven't lived everything out like the initial 12 together and don't ever have the slightest inclination to do so. These are days of the kingdom, carrying on the huge scale vision of William Penn and the others from Chalfont St. Giles. Those guys had more nous in their fingertips than the Pentecostal showmen of America, albeit very Melchizedek ones like Hinn, Kuhlman, Rodney Howard-Browne. But they are all solo. Who blooming cares about solo? Jesus never left glory and meticulously prepared a salvation for us so we could go back into the Old Testament and do Elijah's solo power tours? or even Wimber Power Troop ones. Mark 16 is only part of the story. Never let a Mark or Dave Large reduce Christ's work to patching up bodies. That's why Jesus freaked out in John 6. William Penn had a broader notion than Rodney or Benny Hinn. We don't discard superpower. My God, the apostles beat anything, but not least because they did everything in kingdom context. The modern guys have no clue that kingdom works in the earth now. Nobody has done their 6 years in Bible House. Nobody has a working knowledge of body on the road. Pulkingham's 3 months of tears on his crypt floor meant something. He may have got baptised in the Spirit through David Wilkerson, but Wilkerson remained clueless to the end of his days, contenting himself with being like some Old Testament but Pentecostal version of Prophet Rabbi in Times Square. These fisher folk moving in our school had something in the Spirit. Yes, Rodney Howard-Bound could beat them hands down in power gifts. But those Houston Crypt tears birthed something in the Spirit that our generation caught and started living. Frank Viola has some impression of this through Gene Edwards' life and ministry, surely, and it comes across in his writings. William Penn understood. We're not earthly kingdom, right? But it is kingdom. It's plural and it's in our hearts. After Norman Grubb, we would say we are learning to co-live outside Genesis 3 by taking up our Galatians 2:20 believing, which is both Jesus of the 30 years and Jesus of the 3 years. In the holiest place, it's the Jesus of the acacia wood box and Jesus of the hallowed glory overhead. It's a Melchizedek priesthood. It's a body under one head. It's a place of tabernacling with a roof with holes in. The fellowship that we have with the Father, John says, we now pass on to you. We now pass on to you. Not I, not some solo podium American stooge. We now pass on to you that you may have fellowship with us. I don't think William Penn could quite articulate that, but 400 years on, we've had more heavenly input, haven't we, as a world body? Does anyone get this? Does anybody out there get this? Are there any more than one person ever reading this stuff or hearing this stuff?